Why I would never get tattoos as a 25-year-old Christian rapper slash husband. Yeah. Right off the gate. So I know there's a lot of different perspectives on this topic. There's a lot of different views, maybe theologically, maybe culturally, right? However, I want to give you guys my perspective. Like I just mentioned, I'm very young. Still, I'm a Christian. I'm also a rapper. So all those put together, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of, you can call pros and cons as far as tattoos, for example. And so I just want to give you guys my perspective, my reasoning on my decisions, right? Again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not judging anybody that has tattoos. You might have already scheduled an appointment right now, or you might even just be straight out the shop with your plastic still on, right? I don't know. Again, I know a lot of people that have tattoos, a lot of people that plan on getting tattoos still, even with my opinion, and it's okay. You know, everyone has their own reasoning, their own opinions, but I want to speak to you guys, maybe those that are on the edge that can probably relate to why I decided not to go with getting tattoos, right? Or if you're on the edge and you're like, oh, that's actually not my take on that, and I still want to get tattoos, that is okay too, right? That is, at the end of the day, your decision. I'm not here to make your decisions. I'm just trying to contextualize the gospel in different areas, and this is one area that I want to talk about, right? And so here we are. I remember, as you know, probably like about 10 years old, 10 to 12, I wanted tattoos. I've always been artsy fartsy with the ideas of music, of the arts of painting, images, and tattoos, you know. So I always, you know, told myself as a young guy, I was like, as soon as I hit 18, because listen, my parents disagreed on tattoos, I'll tell you that. But I told myself, as soon as I hit 18, I don't care what anyone says, I'm going to get some tattoos. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. I'm going to get some leg tattoos, some chest, some arms, some neck. Never thought about getting my face tattooed like that. But, you know, that age, I was pretty crazy. I did struggle a lot with making impulsive decisions growing up, right? So that led me into a lot of trouble, right? I did get expelled from middle school how old was I in middle school getting expelled? Like 16 years old or something like that. It's crazy. Getting sent to detention, getting, you know, thrown out of school, going to rehab, having to go through court system. I didn't go to prison, right? I didn't, you know, thank God. God really had his hand on me, and even with what all that I just said, I really saw God's hand in my life in different areas, and I saw, you know, the positive outcome with all that. You know, I could have gone really in the deep end, but God had his hand on me that I was able to just jump back into the school system after completing, you know, rehab or whatever, and finishing off school like normal, graduating at a normal time. I didn't have to be a super duper senior or whatever. Anyways, I would say fast forward, gave my life to Christ really around the age of 18, 19. I can't really remember. It feels like a blur, all that. But right after high school, I had gone through a crazy senior year, hanging out with different groups of people that were probably not the best influence. I had gotten out of a really bad, long relationship and whatnot. And so, you know, long story short, I got out of high school and really just disconnected, right? We disconnected from all that. I started integrating myself in the church and really focusing on what God's plan for my life was, right? I'm not saying I was perfect during that whole situation, but God really spoke to me, I feel. And I gave up my life to Christ. And that was one of the best decisions I had ever made, right? And so when I gave my life to Christ, I started serving the church more. I started being more involved. I started to raise my hand with anything that the church needed, whether it was serving some food, whether it was, I was playing the bass too, so that was great. It kept me busy, kept my mind focused on something. And I was playing the bass. And so, I remember getting asked to be the youth leader roughly around the time I was about to graduate high school, same church. And I said no. At that time I was, it was almost like a two-faced type of thing. I was struggling with a lot in high school, but I was still in church and just, saying I was a Christian, but living a different lifestyle. And so I said no. I was like, I saw myself. I didn't want to lie. I didn't want that responsibility, to be honest. And I just was not ready, right? They just really needed somebody, and I was just consistently available at church. So I guess that kind of made them assume that I was ready. But thank God I said no at that time. That would have been so much, and I don't know if I'd be here right now. But later on, a couple years later on, I was at a different place. They asked me again, hey, this was under a different pastoral leadership, and they asked me if I wanted to be in charge of the youth. And so, at this point in my life, like I mentioned, I really had given my life to Christ. I really had wanted to just follow what he wanted for my life and no longer what I wanted for my life. And so I said yes. I said, let's do it full on. And so I was still playing the bass and helping with the youth and whatnot. And so anyways, this really changed my perspective on how I went about doing things in my life, right? It wasn't so much that I was scared of their judgment or whatnot, but it was more towards the idea of, I really want to be the best example for this youth. I really want to give them my all. And I started studying so much more theology. I started reading more commentary on Bibles, on the Bible, and I started reading apologetics, watching a lot of videos, people like Mike Winger on YouTube, super helpful. Cross-examine on YouTube, reading lots of books on just theology and on all the, anything having to do with Christ and having to do with the perspective on topics like sexuality, right? Addiction, all these different things. And so it really put me in a perspective of, when I make decisions, I have to ask myself first, why do I want to do this? And what is going to be the consequence? What is going to be the outcome, right? Just like anything, there's some people that might be watching this that are older now or younger, right? And they might say, well, obviously, you always have to ask yourself that. However, we don't always do that, especially if you are impulsive like I was, and just kind of make decisions based off of in the moment, in the now, right? And so I had to really put myself in perspective. I had to take a step back and start asking myself why and what's the outcome, right? Because it's no longer about me, right? When I made the decision to follow Christ, it is no longer about me, right? And so anyways, I started to now have this idea of, I want a tattoo, I want a tattoo, I want a tattoo. And I started thinking to myself, or telling myself, if I get a tattoo, it could be a Christian tattoo, it could be a Bible verse, it could be, I don't know, a cross or whatever. And people will then are going to ask me about it. And then I'm going to be able to preach the gospel. And maybe people that, see my tattoos that aren't Christian will look at me in a way of, they'll want to listen to me now because I have tattoos. And then I'll be able to really preach the gospel, right? And so, at the time it sounded great, right? But once you put yourself in perspective and you take a step back and you ask yourself why, right? The intention might be fine, right? But just because the intention is fine, it doesn't always mean that it is justified or that is okay, right? Like I heard Ruslan talk about this the other day, and they were talking about like if you were in a car crash, right, and you were the one driving and you caused that accident, you weren't intending for that accident to happen, but you ended up killing and taking a life, right? Just because you didn't intend for that to happen, there are still consequences for your actions, right? You will still be judged. You will still face the consequences of that. And that's so true, right? And things like that put me in perspective of like, just because my intention was good, that doesn't mean the outcome is the best, or that doesn't mean that my heart was at the right place, right? And so I would tell myself that I would be reaching a wider audience, or I'd be making the word stronger, right? And I think that's where one of the first mistakes came about, right? I can't add any more value to the word, right? I can't make the word truer, right? The word is true regardless if I believe it, if you don't believe it, or if you do believe it. If Justin Bieber says I believe in Christ, that doesn't make Christ stronger, right? In a sense of that doesn't make the truth more true, right? I'm not saying it's bad. I think that's a net positive, right? But it doesn't bring more truth to the gospel. It's just the gospel is true, period, right? And so I had to tell myself that, and really the reason for me that I couldn't get a tattoo, or that I can't get tattoos, is a heart issue, right? I think for me specifically, there's a pride issue, right? That I really had to be honest about, that I had to tell myself, I really just wanted tattoos for people to look at me a certain way, to feel a certain way with me. And that, in a sense, I think is unhealthy, right? That mindset, that heart is unhealthy, right? And I don't want to feel like I'm the one bringing anyone salvation, right? I want to speak the truth, and I want to be a vessel to speak it, but I am at the end of the day ultimately not the one bringing salvation to anyone, right? I am not saving anyone, right? And so, long story short, I don't want to rail on this for too much longer, but yes, I think if you are struggling with pride, for example, if you're struggling with impulsivity, if you are yourself struggling with, the why, for example, and it's not really structured in like a, oh, this is just artistic, I want to use my body as a canvas, for example, I'm a good artist, whatever, and I draw and I want this on me, right? Or I want this verse on me. It means a lot to me specifically, and it has a big impact. And when I see it, I want to be reminded of that's good, right? And more power to you, right? But really, it's a heart issue for me. And I want you guys to be able to ask yourself that as well. Is this a heart issue? Is this a pride issue? Is this, am I just adding excuses to get a tattoo for the sake of it, for the popularity of it? Again, it could be a net positive. It could be a net positive. I think God can use crooked sticks to draw straight lines, right? I'm sure you guys have heard that before. But at the end of the day, I think it's good to be, sober-minded about these things, even when we might feel or tell ourselves that it will have a positive impact at the end of the day. It's important. It's important to really put ourselves in perspective. So pray about it. Ask God about it. Ask God to reveal, things that might not be obvious to you. Surround yourself with people that are honest, that love you. Surround yourself with people that will be, be honest and tell you, hey, man, that might not be the best idea, and aren't yes men, for example, right? So I think that's my take on it. Sorry if I ramble too much. I am a Christian. I'm a rapper. I'm a husband, and I love people with tattoos, right? That's fine. But me, myself, will not get tattoos anytime shortly. If that ever changes for whatever reason, I'll update you guys on it. But to be honest, I think God has spoken to me in a way that, has humbled me. So hope you guys got some good out of that. And my name is Jonathan Azarel Avina. I wish you guys the best. Please pray for me and my family. Pray for this channel. I pray that we continue to drop videos. I'm going to be as consistent as possible. And so, yeah, thanks for clicking in. All right, y'all. Peace.